now making their way to the studio, recently excommunicated from 4 different religions and the state of Texas. It's the Unholy Roundtable.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unholy Roundtable. I am Mike Smithgall. I'm your host, and I'm joined tonight by our merry band of heathens and heretics. I'll just go across the screen there. We have Larry Warren, Mike Gonzalez, and making her debut on the Unholy Roundtable is Cynthia McDonald. And finally, also in the producer chair, another god that you cannot see, you cannot hear, but you'll trust us that she's really there. It's MJ, acting as producer. So welcome, everybody. If you're not tuned in this show before, this is a very casual show, and we encourage you to put your questions out there. We're happy to answer them. We're going to go over some viewer questions that we've taken and that we've picked up from different places, and just give our perspectives as 4 different atheists, all with different journeys and different backgrounds, and just kind of roll with that. So again, let me just quickly welcome the 3 of you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for
having us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is this first question is a group question, because this came up. I don't even where. I've not even paid attention to where I got them all. I got them from all different sources. I'm gonna read the question too for the people that are listening in on the podcast. But I thought it was actually an interesting question, and I won't get too caught up in the semantics of the word, but I do want to see where your perspective is on this. So the question is, what is sin from a non-Christian, and let's just say non-religious point of view? You know, we all know what sin is when Christians say that's a sin, but if you're not a Christian or even a believer, what does sin mean to you? And jump out there, whoever wants to jump first.
Oh, gosh. Mike, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, other Mike. Yes, I want to hear your thoughts.
I was just gonna say that it seems like human beings over time have developed 2 important things that are referred to as norms and mores. You know, a more is something like don't kill each other. You know, murder's not good. Mistreating children isn't good. Mistreating animals isn't good. You know, those major things in society that most societies across the world, throughout the world, will hold similar views on. And then there's norms that we don't break, or I should say there's norms that we have, like here in the United States, we eat beef, and that's not a norm in India, you know? So, sure. Sin, you know, I think it's more, from an atheist, from a non-Christian point of view, sin is basically just that stuff that you just don't do as a decent human being. You know, you treat each other respectfully, and the opposite of that would be considered, for a Christian, I guess that'd be considered sin, or for a non-believer, that's what you could call sin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now,
Cynthia.
what were you going to say?
Yeah,
Cynthia.
You know, I wrestled so much with the word sin since I came out as atheist, because I had one concept of what sin was, and which is basically anything that God said is bad in the Bible, right? And it was interesting to note that some of the things that we call like bad, even as a believer, we will find ourselves doing. Like, we will find ourselves sometimes telling a lie if it would actually cover up something else, right?
Yeah.
We will find ourselves taking something that may not have belonged to us because we felt in the right to do. We may even find ourselves saying the Lord's name in vain if we're talking about like in the context of the 10 Commandments. And then like the one that seemed, especially like in a holiness evangelical atmosphere, like, engaging in like premarital coitus. Right, clutch imaginary pearls, right? Would be considered that as well, right? Because you're supposed to wait until you're married and all this other stuff. And then so like coming on this particular side of it, I have to ask myself, okay, well, do I want to hold to this concept of what sin is, but I only have one way of thinking about it because I only thought about it as a Christian. I don't really know what sin looks like as another member of another religion.
Oh, good
Or
point. Yeah.
yeah, or do I just want to just kind of just kind of just turn away or just like throw away the whole term sin and look more towards like ethics, right? Like
hmm
something that like we all deem across all societal spectrums as that's not good to do, right? Like generally it's not good to go around stabbing people. Like you really do that, like it's it causes chaos, like
Right. It
like,
ruffles feathers.
we
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, you start stabbing people, that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, just like if we just, I just suppose I mostly put it to like, can we get into a space where we are generally just, being more mindful of what's harmful and what's not, and try to stay away from the harmful stuff as much as possible in order for us to build a better society. And
Yeah.
and I guess like I take more of like human aspect to like employing ethics that is pretty much generally accepted no matter where you go, versus
Mhm.
using sin as a moral objective, because there is no such thing as a moral objective. Morals are subject to that particular individual based on whatever the culture dictates, right?
Mhm.
But if we can actually get to the point where we can say that we can kind of generally agree, which most societies and human beings have done, that these particular things are not really good to contribute to well-being, but these things are.
Right. For the tribe, so to speak. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try to build a tribe and make everybody happy. Go
Yeah.
Bulls. There you go.
The
Thank
I
Larry.
think with sin, I think the non-religious don't need to define sin or have sin.
Mhm.
It should be a meaningless term. To me, it's a construct to control people and garner power.
Yeah.
To other themselves, to make themselves be more superior because they don't do those acts. And to get to one of other Mike's points, sin is not just concerning people; it's sins against God
Well,
that
yeah. Christians
that
have
they go along with. So
a
that
truckload of
we can
those.
throw out that whole part of it.
Yeah.
So it's things made up by people to protect their powerful God, which is weird.
Right.
But as you probably are all aware, the word is used as a weapon now. Oh,
Yeah.
you're atheist. You're mad at God and you just want to go sin. And they use the word sin
Yeah.
as a weapon.
Yeah.
Which from my point of view is meaningless. It's a meaningless word.
Right. It is funny, and you touched on that, Larry, and the other two of you said the same thing I always think of as well, which is the tribal aspect of it, and I say that word just as broad, meaning that any society, big or small, right? Like yeah, like Cynthia, we probably shouldn't stab each other. That's not good for living amongst other human beings. We shouldn't take somebody else's spouse in a way that they don't want them to, whatever. All these different things. It basically just boiled down to we need to live together and not try to kill each other and protect ourselves from the other groups, because that's how humans are. There's tribes, right? But Larry, your point, they use sin now. All of us as atheists, I am sure we have all been told that we are, well, first of all, we're sinners because we don't believe in God, which is to Larry's point, right?
The biggest sin.
That's a sin against God. But then the moral aspect, we have no morals because we are obviously not Christians, so therefore we have no morals. I always go back. Is it Penn Jillette that does I rape and kill as much as I want, which is zero. I don't need a book to tell me not to do that. I don't do that because I don't want to do that. It's nothing else beyond that. I don't need morals that written down in a book and then 10 commandments, all these sort of things. So if that's what a sin is, then yeah, that's fine. I don't need to do any of those things.
But even to that extent, I'm sorry,
at least
go ahead.
4 of the 10 commandments have to do with how to love God.
Right.
Yeah. 4 out of 10. And
even
couldn't
to
say
your
don't own a people.
right, that part. Yeah. And then like to your point, like you know, if we will be really honest, we've seen so many examples of, sorry about that, so many examples about, you know, all that particular, you know, things that have happened in church settings towards people, you know, beyond their consent.
Absolutely.
And them not necessarily, like, you know, moving towards like actually creating a space for people to be safe, right? And even though they saying that, like, oh yeah, we believe in, like, you know, a loving God and we're going to protect everybody and yada yada yada. And hey,
Mhm.
Helen girl, how you doing? So good to see you. But you know, but at the end of the, but I don't know how many times, and Helen can attest to this too, because we did a podcast together where we talked a lot about this stuff. It's like pulling up story after story after story about, you know, kids being, you know, violated by, you know,
Mhm.
people in authority who happen to be considered men of God, right? Women of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
One of
they
the very
even
first.
forgive those. They even forgive those who have, you know, done horrible things.
Oh, yes.
Well,
It
sure,
isn't
Which
that's
is a whole different conversation. I did a mic drop on this a couple months or so ago about the institutionalized protection of priests and this, that, or the other. And this is, I say priest as a broad term again. It's not just Catholic. The Southern Baptist has their own problem with this. But that's exactly it. I mean, of all the sins, you know, abusing a child and, you know, essaying a child, about as bad as you can get, right? And the protection that goes into that, which is more to protect the institution. They're not necessarily protecting the individual. They are, but it's because the individual represents the institution. They want to protect the institution more than the child. And I just can't. It's
And they even do it without protecting the institution. If you've got a couple minutes, I can tell you a story that was relayed to me
yeah, we'll do that real quick.
about a gentleman who, growing up, from the age of about 5 to the age of about 13 or 14, was sexually assaulted by his stepfather. His mother knew nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly, almost every night, something, the guy would come in and do something.
Mm-hmm.
And this child had learned that if you pray to Jesus and are sincere, you know, he will help you. So for years, every night,
this hurts.
I understand it. I get emotional about it too, because it gets worse. For years, he prayed and prayed. Nothing saved him. Finally, somehow his mom found out, kicked the guy out. Of course, no charges or anything. But the former stepfather found Jesus and repented and was forgiven. The worst
that
part of it
11th hour
is,
garbage.
the worst part of it is this child, when he grew up, became an atheist, as you may understand. Atheism is the only sin that cannot be forgiven. So it turns out that the rapist, the child rapist, is going to go to heaven, and the child is not. And when asked about this situation, the pastor or religious leader, to justify this, said, well, God used that situation to save that man. That's right.
Could you get more ridiculous than that?
I know it makes me want to, you know, stab people, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And this is something that they justify their sin. They can forgive it all and use this horrible situation, you know, to justify it and to say, oh, it's all right that all of that happened because it was God's plan to save this man.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, the hoops they'll jump through.
I always thought the what's the question, the answer, the word I'm looking for, just as an intellectual exercise, one I've always thought of is, if Hitler on his last moments were to have turned to Jesus, based on everything we've all been told growing up, he would have gone to heaven. Not any of the Jews that he killed, because they're Jewish, but he, the person who was responsible for it, because as long as he did it in his heart, he turned to Jesus, which is, let's come on, this, and on any other, any analogy you come up with, if you don't include the God sort of level, that's asinine. It's just absolutely ridiculous and beyond any any logical belief whatsoever. But you add religion into it, suddenly billions of people believe, yeah, that's true. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
It speaks to the compartmentalization of belief.
Yeah.
It's like my dad. He was evangelical Pentecostal preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also a cop and a bailiff, and actually did court days where he didn't actually, he represented the lawyers, but he wasn't a lawyer for certain hearings and motions and things. He was a representative. So I asked him once, I said, you deal in evidence, you deal in truth and
Facts.
stuff, but he's able to compartmentalize that.
Yeah.
And go bonkers about demons and everything else that we've all heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christianity allows for that 11th hour forgiveness. And Mike was talking about, I think it was in one of your mic drops, you were talking about how God made me do it isn't a valid defense in court. Well,
right.
In Christianity, you can go to God and say, I'm sorry, like you were saying, at the 11th hour, and you're golden. You're gonna get heaven. But there's no court of law in this world anywhere where you can be exonerated at the 11th hour just because of a heartfelt freaking apology.
Even if they're like escorting you to the gas chamber with a priest or minister reading scriptures to you because of the bad thing that you did, that you got sentenced to death. You know, it's insane that, we come up to these crazy mental contortions in order for us to justify why, we can save one person who did this heinous thing versus a person who was victimized, and to say, you know what, if I was a victim of said thing from a person who considered themselves to be a servant of God, then maybe, just maybe, that I am not protected by this particular entity that says that they're loving, all everywhere, all knowing, all the things, right?
Right.
So it I don't want to say begs the question, because that's a fallacy, but it raises a question to ask, what is the thing that's really going to make you really see that perhaps what you think is the protecting force that is this sky daddy, actually real versus not, because I don't know. I remember my 7th grade teacher unfriended me, guys, on Facebook, because I went to Catholic school all my life. And the reason why he unfriended me is because I put up a meme that said that more kids were harmed at churches than in drag shows.
Yeah.
And
100%.
He was more upset that I put this meme up during Holy Week.
Oh my gosh. That's the worst part of it.
Watch those pearls.
How can you see?
And it doesn't take very much of an imagination to think about what was probably going on during that Holy Week somewhere in the Catholic Church.
Somewhere. Yeah. That
That's
is the craziness, isn't it? I mean, the upsetting part was when you posted an absolute fact that they should be rushing to anything they can to stop. But the issue is not that that's happening. It's that you brought it to light during a very special time.
A special time that you can't even prove that actually happened. Like, there is no empirical evidence to support the dying. Well, maybe not even the dying. We have no archaeological evidence to even support the Christian Jesus even existing. Right.
Right.
I don't, even though I'm not a mythicist, right? As far as saying that he never existed. I think that, there may have been some dude running around talking about that he was the son of God during ancient Palestine. I mean, it's possible. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I bet there's more than one.
Sure, because according to history, that was pretty prevalent at the time.
Right.
Everybody was looking for him.
Yeah, exactly. But, but as far as saying that this particular person was divine, the son of God.
Yeah. the mythical and
yeah, all that stuff. Like, we have no empirical evidence to support that. But, but to the point you can just take this leap of faith to say, yes, this is the thing that actually happened. But even though you took the leap of faith, it still does not protect the innocent from people who call themselves men of God, women of God, people of God, to be protected against the things that actually would interrupt their growth and their development and cause trauma that they would keep for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to move on to another question, but that's a great discussion. And it's one of those, I could tell all of us getting a little riled up on that one. So it's an hour-long conversation at a minimum because it's such a problem, but we're going to.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm having Catholic Catholic triggers. Like,
I can hear it. Your friend,
Helen and I both went to a Catholic school.
You said Catholic school,
Catholic girl school. Yeah. Because Helen and I, we talked about these things for ad nauseum, and so I'm a little triggered, but it's okay. It's okay.
No problem. My next actual question is, though, for you, Cynthia. I had you lead it off, and then we'll all just jump in because I know you are a counselor, so I thought this would be it's a little bit up your alley just in general. But let's go with this one here a second. So the question, again, I'll read these out for the podcast. I'm concerned about religious materials appearing in my doctor's waiting room. Thoughts on that?
Oh my God. So guys, like by trade, I'm a social worker, right? And I've had to talk to many patients and clients about like trying to get them adjacent to resources, especially medication, to help them as far as like being able to do things like live. And I've had one too many, in my opinion, to enter into a meeting with me talking about their belief systems that help them calm down. I'm sorry, I'm talking to my dog. That would help them as far as like, their healing process, them able to deal with things, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, even though I'm thinking in the back of my mind, this is bullshit, I'm still being conciliatory to a certain extent. Hey, AJ, that I am supportive of them in whatever their process is in order for them to be able to hold on to something that would help them go through whatever they're dealing with when it comes to their illness. So with that being said, like, I'm like, okay, well, if it works for you, hey, if you like it, I love it. Okay, but I really need you to sign this document so that we can go ahead and get your medication. Okay, cool, great. So, but it's one thing when it's the patient, right? It's a whole different thing. Yeah. That's totally fine. But it's a whole different thing that I get like super annoyed about if I happen to see religious material in a doctor's office. And especially if that doctor is using that material in order for them to say, hey, not only am I going to give you this prescription, but I think that I need for you to attend this meeting with a whole bunch of Christians that's going to tell you how to pray better. Right? In order for you to be able to deal with your illness. Oh, if you want to go outside, just go. Do you want to go outside? If you want to go outside, go. Then go. Go to the door. Somebody will let you out. Seriously. Sorry, guys. Anyway.
Okay.
The dog
I have a cat.
She's sleeping over there. Right. I have a cat too, but it's not. I don't really own her. She's the cat that I live with.
Right. Yeah. It's a roommate.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that. I just really wish that like if we can actually keep an idea of separating, church and state, and I even say that state should be extended to the doctor's office, because no amount of thoughts and prayers is going to cure you of any illness that we know, right? If a person happens to gain some type of infection, the only thing that was able to assist them in their infection is some type of vaccine or some type of, antibiotics. Right. Exactly.
Something.
Some type of medication that's going to assist them and for them to be able to be treated and get better. Right.
Right.
And we already know that the most the hugest thing that actually helped quell a lot of diseases that we have encountered since we actually discovered viruses in the late 1800s is vaccines, So and so like this is something that has been discovered through work and data gathered through the scientific method, not because somebody decided to take a shroom and have like a psychedelic, a trip, and then all of a sudden seeing the hand of God to tell them how to do A, B, and C. It does not work that way.
Right.
So it annoys me.
I had it's like 10, 12 years ago now. I had shoulder surgery and I had a torn labrum and rotator cuff, which is pretty torn up, right? So I had to go to physical therapy twice a week for like 4 or 5 months. It was a fair amount. And I remember I went into his physical therapist, good guy, funny guy, he was actually a really funny guy, real nice guy. But I was looking around the office and his little area of the therapy room, which was like 4 or 5 therapists all working on people. It was that kind of place. And I could see just religious stuff everywhere. I'm like, okay, but I'm here for just physical therapy. I'm not, here for life-saving surgery. But I knew it was coming. I just knew it was going to happen at some point. That question. So he's telling me, this is our first meeting. He's telling me all the things. This is what we're going to do. And it's going to be like twice a week. And we'll do massage. And then I'll stretch. And then we'll massage. And, all these things. Great. Then, Mike, I'm a Christian. And would you have any problem with me praying? And I'm at that moment, I'm like, I had never quite been asked that in that type of setting. And I was like, okay, I don't mind that he's a Christian by any means. Again, as I think we've said to all of you, everyone I know for the most part, and everyone I've ever loved is a Christian. So this isn't unusual to me. And you just told me all the things he was going to do from a physical, medical point of view. That's what I was here for. But he wanted to pray. I'm like, okay, but you're going to pray for me. I don't have to pray back, whatever that would mean. Like, okay. But here's the interesting thing. So I said, yeah, that's fine. I didn't actually say what I was at the time because it was a little caught off guard. But twice a week, I would go through this therapy. And most of the time, just a normal conversation. And again, he was a real funny guy. He would always have like Sharknado 17 on the TVs playing because he was that kind of guy, just a funny kind of guy. But eventually we got around to him asking me, what church do I go to? And this is in the South where, if anybody's ever lived in the South, what church do you go to? It's about the third question they ask you, right? If you're married, you have kids, what church? He asked me, so I'm like, all right, well, here we go. He's got my arm twisted in an uncomfortable position, but I'm about to tell him I'm an atheist and could rip it off. But he turns out he's not only a Christian, he's a young earth apologist, Christian apologist. I was like, oh, shit, this is going to be interesting. But it actually turned out to be one of the most fascinating times because I'd be laying there for an hour and a half. He's just stretching my arm out. And he would tell me all about his young earth. Now, he knew I was an atheist, and so we would debate in a very friendly way. But it was a fascinating conversation because, I had never heard anybody to that level talk about being young earth, how they came up with these numbers and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I was like, if he had led with that, I'm like, I'm out of here. This is not for me. But he led with the medical first. So I kind of balanced that. It's kind of like you were saying earlier, Cynthia, if you're not going to treat me with drugs and medicine and all these other things that I know do work, I don't mind you throwing in the Jesus after the fact, but let's start with the drugs. Let's do the chemo or whatever you need to do first. Then throwing in, that's a bonus. It's the sprinkles on top of the sundae.
Let's see if I get better with normal stuff before we bring in the supernatural.
Exactly. What about you guys? Anything else on that? Did you have any thoughts on that? I'm sure you do, but
well, Mike, as you know, my shoulder therapist was an atheist, so I lucked out there.
That's right. Yeah, you got lucky on that one.
But the other thing that you could do, it occurred to me, is go into the waiting room with all this material and bring your red pen and start correcting it all. So the next person sees it, you're raising questions. You're asking the questions for them.
Right. Just start writing atheistville.com. That's our website. Write that next to it.
I wouldn't be concerned. I'd almost be excited.
I've had a situation where someone started to proselytize to me and suggested that prayer would be a nice additional bonus to the medical care that I was getting. And I said, oh, okay. And then I contacted I just very quickly, after I left that office, I contacted the what do you call it? The patient advocate. I'm like, so it's time for a new doctor. And they're like, well, why? And the person I was speaking to was religious and put up a defense for it. And I'm just like, okay, so who's your supervisor? You know, I didn't ask them.
God.
I just wasn't feeling very confrontational at the moment. And I just searched out who was who. And you know who I finally went to?
Yeah.
I went to the chaplain, and the chaplain got it done for me. The chaplain got it done for me.
All people.
Yep.
That's
he was amazing to talk to. And he was a guy here at the VA. He's still a chaplain there. And every once in a while I'll pop in. And it's good
for
great
him
to talk to him. But he said, to be honest, Mike, he says there's too many religious medical professionals. He said there's no reason anyone should be pushing their religion on you. You guys went and fought for your country, and you all come from different backgrounds. We need to, as we have a responsibility to be as middle of the road as possible and respect just that sacrifice that you were willing to make. So, yeah.
Good. I have a special place in my heart for veterans of the other Mike, and I just want to say thank you for your service. My father was a veteran as well, so I appreciate
You're
that
welcome.
very, very, very much. And I hope that we can actually get more secular chaplains, because I know that is definitely a thing. The president of our organization for Black non-believers is also a celebrant. A secular celebrant.
Oh, wow.
So, and I'm hoping that we can actually open up the door to have more secular celebrants and chaplains in order for them to guide people a little bit more with a humanist way instead of like the religious way. That would be be
fantastic.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah. That actually brings us to a nice little segue in terms of people celebrants and this sort of thing and chaplains. Thanks, Mike, for setting that up unintentionally. So the question I had is actually for you, Mike, because for the other ones on the call and people at home, they don't know Mike's background. You were on your way to being a pastor, Lutheran, if I'm not mistaken. So this person wrote in, maybe I read it or something. It says, as a former pastor on my journey from faith to atheism, I'm feeling lost and alone along the way. And I thought, Mike, you probably can speak to that.
Absolutely. And I empathize with that person because it is a painful journey to go through. And so I could cut right to the chase because now my hindsight is 2020. I could cut right to the very end and give a real short response to that. But I think it's important to acknowledge that pain that person is going through, because what they're experiencing is a huge I know for myself, I was experiencing a huge loss because now I was no longer like everyone else. I felt other, I felt other than, I felt very different. And we all want to be part of that in-group. That's just a natural part of human psychology.
Right.
So when you're going through that, there's that losing that personal connection. And then there's the connection to the divine. And there was a moment when it kind of hit me like a bolt from the blue that, hey, I don't have to be sad about losing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I heard myself saying all the time, well, God wants this and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, this and that and all of that, as I was going through my deconstruction. And then when I realized those aren't really things. Those aren't things. There's Thor isn't real.
Right. Yeah.
A chariot pulling the sun through the sky is not real. I had to give up the absurdity and I had to give up the magical thinking. And I know that viewers here will hear me say that a lot. Get rid of the absurdity and get rid of the magical thinking. But that was so powerful for me.
Yeah.
And let's also consider that what Christianity suggests is that we put a huge amount of stock, we put our entire salvation upon the writings of a bunch of Bronze Age people who didn't know where the sun went at night. And that's not okay, because humanity has understanding. and we know we don't need to invoke the God of the gaps. When we're at the limit of our understanding, it isn't necessary to say, well, that must be where God resides. That must, we are continually pushing the veil of our understanding back farther and farther and farther. And this whole entire amazing, wonderful universe is right here in front of us. And I mean, I can look up at the night sky and just get to tears. I can look at a tree. And just almost come to tears because of how wonderful and real it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person is going through that deconstruction, I get it. And
we'll have to give up.
Yeah,
initially.
You don't have to give. You just will take time to talk to other folks who love you and care about you. And a great place to start is right here in this forum that you've created, Mike. This is an excellent place for it. We're going to listen to you, Yeah.
Well,
shoot me a message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any of us a message.
Any of us
would love to hear from you.
That's the reason we started doing this. And Cynthia, you and I both know someone, you know them better than I do. We won't say their name, but the gentleman that's in your Black non-believers group that was a Pentecostal preacher, had his own church, and at some point raised his kids as homeschooled because of that whole thing. His wife was, the equivalent of every other pastor's wife. They're always elevated above everybody. And he's like, at some point, yeah, I don't believe any of this. And, then he's like, do I keep going on this? Or, because that's his whole life. And hopefully it didn't work out well as a term, because he'd lost his wife. He didn't lose his kids. In fact, one of his kids, I remember him telling me that one of his kids, like, yeah, we never believed it either, but I had to kind of go along because you're dad.
Right. Exactly.
It was actually a really interesting conversation. I'd like to have him on the show. He and I we don't know each other well enough, but if you can influence that, because I would. No,
I'm going to. I think he would probably be up to it, but I had to push him a little bit more. But no,
he's kind of reserved.
Yeah, he's a pretty reserved guy, but he's pretty. I mean, but as you can tell, he has no problem talking.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it's just so fascinating to have a person that was in that life for so long, right? Who was a part of the clergy, who raised their kids and also chosen their spouse based on their beliefs.
The whole thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, you as you go along with it, and then you actually look at the Bible again, and then really try to reconcile some of the things that you read to the point where wow, this just makes no sense, right?
Right.
And then to the point you go to your spouse and you know what? I don't believe in this stuff anymore. and then it's what do you do with that, right? I mean, Mike, I wish he was at the debate that we were able to host last month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the person who debated our member, their wife was there. He's a pastor. Their wife was there. And then so I and his wife had it wasn't that long of a conversation, but we had a very poignant conversation. And my mom was there too, and she was like, well, how do you rectify this stuff? Your daughter is an atheist and you're a Christian, right? And then what my mom said? She said, well, I don't know. Maybe I was indoctrinated too.
Oh, little crack in the armor there. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, go ahead, mama. Right? But
yeah.
Yeah, but I know a lot of times when I was having a conversation with her, and I find this happening a lot of times when I'm speaking to people who are theists. I feel, I think, I believe, they never talk in reality figures that, make sense to you and I, right?
Yeah.
Something that we can both say hey, that cat exists, right?
Right.
But
2 + 2 is 4.
Right. Exactly. Right. No, it's not 5. It's 4.
I don't believe that it's 5.
Right,
it is 4.
It's really 4 because I counted. I was 1, 2, 3, 4. Right.
Yeah.
So
provable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's provable. So and that's the thing. Every time that we were speaking past each other, because I'm talking about empiricism and she's talking about things that she believes, right?
Yeah.
And then trying to pigeonhole it into something that could be related to reality. And it makes and it kind of like drove me crazy talking to her because I'm like, okay, can we shift from magical thinking to something that we can both equate to real, right? Because like right now we're not speaking in reality. We are speaking in, thoughts and fluffiness and clouds, even though I can say the clouds are real, but what you want a cloud to be versus what it is, right? That's my problem. That's my problem. Yeah.
Well, I've said it before.
Ahead.
The internet must make this situation a lot easier. I don't know when, Mike, you went through your deconversion.
No internet.
Right. So it must
80s.
feel much more alone.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. And others like Dan Barker who went through that chain.
I'm sorry. I got to shout out to Dan Barker. I work with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Dan, you are the man. I love you.
Yeah. and the things that he went through and several others. But now that we have this robust internet, you can find other people. I mean, even when I started really examining myself, it kind of occurred to me. I said, well, there wouldn't be any Black atheists, because the church is so strong in that community, and it's just. But now we know we can find each other to a degree and get some support.
Yeah, I'll plug Cynthia's group, the Black Non-Believers, and also plug the interview that Cynthia and I did a couple months ago, where we talked specifically about that. And to your point, Larry, that's exactly it. I've been on different forums on Reddit and Facebook or whatever, and every once in a while I'll see that from a Black person who will say, "Are there any Black atheists on this group?" And I'm like, "Oh, I know one. I know a whole group." Go to
there's too many people that look like Mike and me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And
agreed.
The sheer numbers, obviously there's going to be more white people than there are Black people as atheists, just because the numbers work out that way. But it doesn't mean they don't exist. And you're right. If you're the one Black person in Duluth who is an atheist, and you don't know another single one, without the internet, you're going to live and die as the only one and thinking you're the strange one. But in fact, there's a whole group, or you're the Black or the Muslim who's trying to decide, and you live in Afghanistan or whatever. All these sort of groups. If you're the minority and you feel like a minority, it's tough without the internet. I don't know how people came to that conclusion easily. I don't know if that's the right word back in the day, because who did you talk to? There's nobody to ask. There's nobody to bounce these questions off. And this group that we're doing here and these discussions is exactly what this is for. When I put this whole thing together originally, it was exactly for this. I want that random guy in the middle of nowhere, or girl, or whatever the person is, to see this and say, oh, yeah, you know what? That Mike Gonzalez, he's doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm going through right now. Or Cynthia, I can identify with her because I'm a Black woman and I'm an atheist. And I can't tell my mom either. But she did, and she came out, and she's now an atheist. I'm okay. That's what I want. I want you guys to give strength to somebody.
Have you all had conversations online with people that you don't really know, where they're atheist and they're attacking your atheism, or they're trying to convince you you're wrong, and you're trying to point out to why you believe the way you do and how their thinking is flawed? I've many times over the past, since the internet came on, I've had people say, well, you're not going to change my mind. I said, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm trying to put this out there for anybody else reading this so they can think and ask questions. I'm not trying to change your mind. Exactly. It's a conversation. It's not, it's not the result they think I'm going for is not the result I'm going for.
And the
more we do that, the better we're off.
And to your point, Larry, I'm sorry to cut
you. Go ahead, listen. The other Mike. Then Mike.
I just want to say this real quick. I said, and to your point, when you're having those discussions online with other people are looking, the discussion is never for the person that you're engaging with. It's for the people who are actually watching, right?
Exactly.
Because those are the ones who are going to be looking at your argument versus the person who is engaged with you to see who makes more sense. And often I've known that I've had exchanges, with theists online, including pastors, who will swear up and down that they're right because Jesus, right? And even I had to point out in their own book where there are flaws that would cause one to pause on if what they are saying makes sense or it does not. And even if it does make sense per se, how do you make this applicable to your life personally so that you are able to move forward? I have not spoken to a person who thinks that slavery is a good idea. You know,
I hope not.
Not one. I really haven't. I mean, like, I've seen people, you know, kind of make, you know, arguments on the why, including
Yes.
slavery was a thing that was part of humanity, you know,
Blah,
for
blah,
a long time, blah, 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 blah. And of course, like, my question is always then why, if God is such a benevolent God, why would he endorse slavery in the Bible? And then they say he never endorsed slavery, and I was like, "Turn with me, to the book of Leviticus."
Well, Cynthia, I would propose that you probably have spoken to someone who thinks slavery is a good idea.
Yeah.
They just know that saying that is not a good idea.
Okay, facts. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, but regardless, there's still some type of apologetic, right, that's applied to this institution. Even if they say, well, you know, it's not really cool, but you know, I understand why it existed, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's important, even if we're engaging with those people so that other people can actually see what's happening in our conversations, that they're really seeing like a cogent argument on not only why this institution was bad, and also address why certain, you know, people, you know, gods who call themselves benevolent would even sanction this thing to be okay in the first place. And if they're saying, well, God knew that slavery was a thing, so he actually inspired the authors of the Bible to write about how to regulate it. And I was like, no, this is God, like the creator of the universe. Like, he spoke into existence over the course of 6 days reality.
Right.
Why could he not say, hey guys, that I created in my own image, don't enslave people?
Right.
I'm kind of against that. That's
Here's
not
a few
okay.
rules. I'm gonna make hard rules.
Yeah. I mean, like, you have like all these, like, I know that we talk about the 10 Commandments, but you know, like, if we're looking at Judaism, they had like over 600 and like 13 rules that they had to follow. So why can't one of those 613 rules and says, by the by, slavery sucks, don't do it, I am God?
And the 10 Commandments has like 3 different versions in different books, and they're not the same.
And none of them include "don't be slavery." Don't be a slaver. Yeah. I don't know. Let's move on to another one. This is actually real quick, Bill, before I move to this next question. For those of you that are watching at home or listening on the podcast, just do me a favor. Like and subscribe to this channel. It helps us grow. I do appreciate that when you do that. And if you could do me one more favor, comment on these, not just here now on the live, but in general. I read every one of these comments. In fact, most of the members on this call tonight will read their comments as well. And we love to talk to you. We love to engage with you. And I promise, and if you find this is not the case, you let me know, that we will be respectful to your comment. We will not agree with you necessarily, but we're respectful as a person. As I've said before, I am a love the believer, hate the belief kind of guy. So I'm happy to respond to every question and every comment. So I just want to make that, if you guys could do that for me, we would appreciate it. I did want to move on to something. We kind of touched about this earlier, and I've got a viewer comment here in a second, but let me actually do the comment first, and then we'll get to the question. So this person, I mentioned this round table, and I mentioned, you know, hey, did you ever have struggle trying to tell your mom that you were an atheist? And we've kind of talked about that coming out to family. This person had a very interesting take, and I want to get you guys' opinion on this. So let me, I'm going to pull this up here. I'm going to kind of read it for some of the people at home. So his first question to me was, why would you tell anyone you're an atheist? And this is a little snippet of our conversation. It was a very respectful conversation. But his first thing he said was, telling a Christian that loves you, parents, spouses, siblings, blah, 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 that you're an atheist would only serve to break their heart. And unfortunately, give them the need to proselytize. And then we kind of went back and forth, and he had this little piece that I thought was interesting. So you're not compelled to confess atheism. However, they are compelled to confess Christ as their savior. And he went on to say, essentially, I should shut up and sit down, because as an atheist, I shouldn't tell anybody that. I shouldn't bother anybody that and burden them with my atheism. But as Christians, they are obligated to tell me that, because that's what it says they should do, is proselytize. And he was perfectly happy with me just being quiet about it. So none of you seem to be very quiet about it. So what are your thoughts about this gentleman? And I've blanked his name out. I don't want anybody to harass the guy, because he was a respectful conversation. I just could not disagree with him more. What are your thoughts on that?
We see this all the time from Christianity. They tell us consistently and constantly to turn away from reality and to embrace to embrace their their unreal situations that they put out there for us. Everyone's it's so frustrating, because it's hard for me to get away from the fact that they push this unreality, and I'll just let somebody else take it for a minute, but I just wanted to get that out there, I guess.
Sure. Larry, Cynthia, thoughts?
Well, just because you're compelled to do something doesn't mean it's right.
Exactly. Right.
That's no justification for
anything.
Us being quiet.
Right.
There's a difference between lying and not just not saying anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't tell everyone I'm an atheist, but I know there are Christians that tell everyone that what type of Christian they are. What church do you go to, Mike?
Right.
So the other thing I think at the root of it is a lot of perhaps this person has encountered atheists in the wild who asked him questions that he could not come up with answers for, and he didn't know anybody that could provide a good answer for. So he has to block it out and maintain the indoctrination and the compartmentalization, as we mentioned, to just go forward and do their lives, feel content in their being.
Yeah.
Which was the surprising thing to me, was how much less stressed and more happy I became once I realized I was an atheist.
Just because you were able to speak truthfully, or you weren't trying to hide it at every turn? And what do you mean by that?
There was not this ominous threats. There wasn't this required duties to do. There wasn't the threat of you'll never go to heaven, and even if you don't believe, just fake it till you make it. And I thought, well, that's not honest.
That can't be true. Yeah.
So
Pascal's wager. I mean, come on.
Pascal's wager. Yeah.
That's exactly Pascal's wager. Yeah, it's interesting when I think of having these conversations, or even presenting that we're atheists, right? How people who happen to not be feel that they have to chime in to say, how dare you actually say that you're an atheist?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and
what he was saying.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so can I turn that back on you and say, how dare you are a believer in some deity that we can't prove exists? Like, how? I mean, like, you can have that. You can have that. Duolingo with a person to turn it back on them, to say that, well, if you're going to confess your non-belief, I have to confess my belief. I'm like, but you guys do that all the time. You do it all the time. Constantly. Guys, quick story. So I moved to a new position, and I was at one center where the person who was a director decided that it was a good idea, and I know, Mike, you saw this, to write scriptures and post it on a board, like, one of those, like, caulk boards above my desk.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, one of the first things that pops up if you Google my name is, like, my profile on Black non-believers.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm just looking at these scriptures and I'm just like, how dare you, right? Because like I've never came to them to say that I am the most angriest atheist ever in life, and if you come at me, bro.
Yeah.
It's going to be consequences, right?
Right.
But I mean, like I come, I do my work, I go home, because that's what a job does, right?
Right.
But at the same time, like I would constantly hear in a workplace that is supposed to be separate from like government, only because it is considered a government office,
Mhm.
that, oh, did you pray about it, sister such and such? Did you, well, I was fasting the other day and I heard a word from the Lord that came down from above,
Brother. Oh
and
my
all this
God.
other stuff. And I was just like, and I even had like, people who were clients of like the place to say, so what church do you go to? And I was like,
Here we go. Yeah.
well, she said, well, you should go to church. And I'm like, or not. Or,
Or-
and I hate that we have to be in this position, even in the year of our Lord 2025,
Right.
that we have to be more more conscious of actually stating if we are a believer or not, versus
Yeah.
those who are. I mean, like, you would think that with the establishment clause being the separation of church and state, that people would keep that to themselves. But unfortunately, we have a whole great commission from the Lord himself, who
Mhm.
said, go into the highways and byways and preach the gospel and bring and compel men to come, right? So that's something that's constantly being told to them in their churches. They feel that they have the obligation to tell any person that's on the spectrum of non-belief that, hey, there's a savior and you need him. And I'm just like, you know what? I really wish that your religion would tell you to keep that to yourself. And guess what? I would keep my non-belief to myself.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, right? Yeah. For them keeping it themselves.
I find myself looking back at all of the times that I ended up telling someone that I was atheist, and it is always in response to someone asking the question. It's I never. It's
Yeah.
just something that just doesn't come up, because I don't have to tell anyone that I don't believe in a teacup, a magic teacup, floating at the bottom of the garden, like Richard Dawkins would say.
Yeah.
So it really, I had a hard time at the very beginning of this, very beginning when this was posted up on the screen. I actually lost my train of thought. I became so irritated because we do not, or I should say, the atheists that I know, we don't go out and proselytize. There's
Mhm.
no reason for it. I don't have to go around telling people what their reality is or what reality truly is. We all experience a reality that our perception is our reality.
Mhm.
And I am so sick to death. I'm just sick to death of Christians, of religious people thinking that they have a right to try to influence the way that I think. That's just sickening. And to tell me that I shouldn't tell anyone that I'm atheist because it's going to break their heart, to tell a family member. Well, first of all, I've been in that position, and here's what my decision was. And it's super important for people to understand that if you take the position, if you begin from the position of do no harm but take no shit, you're going to have a great life, trust me. Because when my
Right.
mother was on her deathbed, I knew that telling her that I don't believe in her Christianity, that's not going to do her any good. See,
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to tell her any of that.
Mhm.
Now, what helped out in that moment? I told her that she's going to be in the arms of Jesus. She's going to be moving on. And you know something?
Makes her feel better.
It did no harm, and I
Right.
felt great at the end of it. But I'll tell you what, My hackles will get up real quick with a goddamn quickness the moment that someone tells me that I have to start playing with those pretend imaginary friends.
Right.
Don't do it. Don't put it in the
cosplay.
schools. Don't put it in public schools. Keep it in your church. I was
Yeah.
a soldier. I will go down fighting for your right to be able to pray to the teacup at the bottom of the garden if that's what you want to do. But don't start telling me that I got to start doing the same thing. Because, brother, we're going to have an issue. We will be at loggerheads.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was a respectful conversation as it was. But it was just one like, I can't even get my head around where you're coming from, in the sense that I know why you think we should be quiet, but just logically, you know that that's just wrong. You're saying I should be quiet. I should cosplay as a Christian to not upset everybody else. And again, as I mentioned, I did a short or a TikTok, I think, on this today. The fragility that they assume of everyone I know that would just crumble into tears the minute I say I'm an atheist. Like, come on, give everybody a little bit more credit than maybe you're giving yourself. Because, my mom knows I'm an atheist. She's not thrilled about it. She knows Cynthia's mom, not thrilled about it. Cynthia drives her to church. Okay. And our parents still love us, and we love our parents and our siblings and blah, 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 it's just, but I don't need to pretend something I'm not, just on the off chance. Like you were saying, Mike, if you're on your deathbed, if my mom is on her deathbed and she wants me to hold her hand and pray with her, okay, I'm going to tell my 98-year-old grandmother before she died that she's beautiful. She's 98 years old. Is she beautiful? No, she's a 98-year-old lady, but it made her feel better. You know what I mean? And if it makes my mom feel better that she's going to go to heaven and see Jesus, okay, it does me no harm to do that. But now she asked me today when she's 75 and long before her deathbed, I'm going to tell her I'm an atheist. Okay. There's times you bring things up, like you were saying, Mike, too. I work with hundreds of people, and I've given, presentations to hundreds of people. None of them know I'm an atheist because it never comes up. How's
There's
that
no
ever
reason
gonna
it doesn't come up.
No. So
Yeah.
as part of my general life, if you're trying to get to know me, okay, we can bring it up. But I can tell you, nobody at Target has ever asked me if I'm an atheist ever. So it's never come up.
And
I will certainly, on the way to Target, see people standing on the corner holding up signs that say repent,
there's a guy with a
or you'll
bullhorn
come
down in my
across.
Target.
I
Yep.
went to Lowe's, guys, yesterday, and I saw that whole billboard saying experiencing anxiety, try Jesus, and call this number.
Exactly.
And I was just like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
I was like, I was just trying to buy chrysanthemums. That's all I was trying to do.
That's all I'm trying to do.
That's all.
I never see those street corner guys when I'm by myself. My wife won't let me stop and talk to them.
No.
But I think they view atheism as an attack on them.
Yeah.
It's they view it like, well, if you're not going to believe in Jesus, and granted, we're speaking about Christianity because we're in the United States.
Right. Default. Yeah.
But they view it as an attack on their very being.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't view Christianity or religiosity as an attack on us, because we understand that we simply lack a belief.
Right.
Right.
The majority of us do not believe there's no God. We don't believe there is a God. That's a subtle difference.
It's not an attack.
It's difficult
but it
to
can
understand
be a
for lot of
threat.
people.
Yeah.
The difference between I believe there is no and I do not believe there is.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I want to jump, Larry. I've got a question for you.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Here we go, Larry. I'm going to read this question again. And I'm going to change the question slightly. This is the question that was posed originally, and I'm going to alter it just a little bit. But the question was, religious people believing that climate change, etc., is just the end times freaks me out. I didn't read the rest of their thing, and maybe you did, why they specifically picked climate change. But just say we, at all of our ages, have gone through just wave after wave after wave of someone telling us, oh, this is the end times. Because you look at this, you look at that, you look at that. This is clearly the end times. They've been saying this now for 2,000 years. It's the end times, and a broken clock is right twice a day, right, or whatever that phrase is. Eventually, it's going to be the end times because the comet's going to wipe us all out. They're like, I told you. Okay, lucky you got to be right, but it had nothing to do with.
I have
whatever.
I have solar expansion in the pool instead of comet. So
there you go. It's something. But tell me what your thoughts about that, and the rest of us can chime in on that idea that something is end times and it's freaking people out. Come on.
Where to begin? There's so much there in that little sentence.
You're welcome.
What religious people believe has ceased to freak me out because it has failed over and over and over again.
Yes.
Is it the Jehovah's Witnesses that first came up with this in the early 1900s? I may be getting that wrong.
The Adventists.
Where they decided that the rapture was coming and had all their people sell all their stuff and then stand there and wait for, well, nothing happened. And then they said, oh, well, we miscalculated the date, and they reset it, and they again sold all their stuff, didn't bother going to, school or furthering their education. What's the point? We're going to rapture with Jesus. And it didn't happen again. And it's over and over and over again, even up until the last few years.
Yeah.
People have gathered with this belief that the rapture is here because they were seeing the end times. I think it's a little bit of confirmation bias, where they have this belief that the Bible says Jesus will return with a sword coming out of his mouth and start destroying stuff, and there'll be lion-faced, horse-faced locusts flying around, and this is going to happen. The dead will rise from the graves, on all the other nonsense and Revelation. But there's no logical sense to it.
Yeah,
it's just a belief gone mad. It's the whole book. I didn't read it word for word, but the parts that I have read strike me as somebody on some sort of psychedelic trip, jotting notes down.
right.
And there were plants in the Middle East that could create psychotropic hallucinations, and you can connect the two logically. Gonzalez says the simplest explanation is most likely to be the one. But it's just insane to me. I don't let it worry me anymore, because I've actually talked to people who were like in Times Square, about 12 years ago, when they thought the rapture was coming. For some reason, they decided that Times Square in New York City was the place to be for the rapture. And
So insane.
They got to stand around and watch nothing happen, and they laughed
Again.
their asses off.
Yet again.
Nothing
happened.
But if you're insistent and repetitive enough and garner enough power and influence over these people, there's going to be another group waiting shortly.
Yeah, and you said that they recalculated the date. That happens every single time. This happens all the time. Sometimes it's big news, sometimes it's small news. There's always some random preacher in the middle of nowhere who says this date based on whatever crazy number.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't happen, they're like, I was off by what? You're off because it's never going to happen, man. You remember the Mayan calendar? Was it 2012? Like that we're going back to the Mayan.
Yeah.
That one. Like, oh my gosh, they weren't even Christian, but we're still somehow applying it. Like, this is insane. It happens though. I don't know, every year, every two. I hear it constantly my entire life. And
would I be correct in this is a thought I've had for a while. The United States' fervent and consistent support for the state of Israel is directly related to the religious feeling that if Israel is destroyed, that's the end of that's the second.
Yeah, I would support you on that one. Yeah,
I would double down, triple
Absolutely.
down on that support.
They're praying for a quickening of that event. In fact, Israel has gone back in the late 90s. They went through a breeding program to bring back the red bulls that would be able to
one of the
ones that should be sacrificed.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I know that they sent them to a place here in the United States, and that place was guarded like really heavily so that, you know, crazy people couldn't get at them and kill the bulls, you know, because they need that for part of their blood ritual.
Is that tongue in cheek where Red Bull gives you wings?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm
fly right on
I
up
think
to
I see
heaven.
the connection now.
I'm
I
starting.
believe
Yeah,
it's the sacred Apis bull that they're in need of in order to fulfill their blood magic ritual. Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, like when you think
That is
about
insane.
like some of these like evangelicals that are like so pro-Israel, right? Like the Mike Huckabees of the world. And you know, remember back in the day, it was Pat Robertson, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
All of those people want the end to come.
Yeah,
They
have
are
like a
fervently
hard-on.
praying
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
heaven
they like-
come to earth and the end happen, which
Right.
means that everyone who hears me right now, there's someone out there
Under the
who's
sound of your voice.
fervently praying that you no longer exist. Those people are dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, they may not pose a danger to us, you know, directly, but that is very dangerous thinking. That is way outside the realm of where anybody should be operating.
And it's
Because
so
when
on
you
the edge.
start allow things like that, then we're in really dangerous water. Then people start strapping bombs to their chest. They start doing all kinds of really crazy shit.
Yeah.
That should not be tolerated.
They do the things in order for them to try to bring into reality the stuff that they read in their scriptures to make the end times come about.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that is dangerous. I even just think about like how, and I think that, yeah, you were right, Larry, when you were mentioning about the Jehovah Witnesses every 2 to 3 years coming up with a different doomsday, scenario, because the prophet of the, church said things. And I have a personal ought with any type of organization or individuals who constantly preach this end day thing, because I have a sinking feeling that they're going to help to propagandize like certain, horrible things that can be detrimental to us as a society. Like I think of like some of the things that are happening at the federal level, and how I would hear religious people say, well, the Bible says this, and the Bible says that, and Israel is now a state. So, we just know that the four horsemen are on their way, and all these different things. And I'm just like, see, this is my issue. You're going to turn reality and society in order to make this thing a reality, instead of saying like, hey, how can we work together to make society better for all of us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, and this is why I don't call myself anti-theist. I call myself anti-religious.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I call myself anti-religious is because oftentimes you hear this rhetoric coming from, religious doctrine in order to propagandize some type of narrative of this is supposed to be what we're supposed to do. And it goes completely against well-being. Completely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand how constantly preaching that the end is near and the Antichrist is coming and we need the Red Bull to give us wings in order for us to bring about like, a more perfect union. I don't see it. If I don't see it and you do, I would be more than happy to be enlightened by you and whatever knowledge that you might possess. I will listen, and before I say this is bullshit, but I will, like, if you come to me with empiricism, but unfortunately we haven't gotten that yet. The only thing that we have gotten is like, preachers and other, televangelists telling us that this is the end times, so we need to take heed because of God Magog or whatever type of shit that is. And then, other people like falling in line and following suit with this type of doctrine. Yeah.
Do you know how many dozens of movies they've made about the rapture and the tribulation?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Common trope, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The Left Behind series. Why is the Left Behind thing a series?
Yeah. Is that Kirk Cameron? Is that his series?
Well, you have the rapture, then you have the tribulation.
Oh God.
So the second movie was about the tribulation and the marks and the killing of the the assassinations of the religious and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, they went back to the early 70s and they're still making them. So
Oh, and they probably will. And like I said, until the comet hits us or whatever we do, it's like a boogeyman, right? It's the thing under the bed or hiding in the woods or whatever. It's this thing that's hanging out there that's ready to take us out at any given moment, and we better prepare and we better do the right thing because it's happening. It's like, come on.
Well,
it's a way to control.
It's a much more exciting story than, oh yeah, I don't believe in that anymore. How long would that movie be?
Exactly. That would be a short on TikTok. And then we're done.
There'd probably be a dance to go with it.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. I'm going to throw this clip up, and then Mike, I'm going to have you address it in just an update. Mike and I did a live on Wednesday after the shooting in Minneapolis, and I'm going to just run this news clip for the people that didn't see that on Wednesday, and we'll talk about this. And Mike, give us any updates that you may have acquired since then. I've sort of followed it, but I haven't followed it as closely as you have. So hold on, I want to run this real quick.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead.
The mayor of Minneapolis in the wake of a shooter's rampage at a Catholic school this morning.
A gunman approached on the outside, on the side of the building, and began firing a rifle through the church windows towards the children sitting in the pews at the Mass.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara says the killer carried 3 guns, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol.
This was a deliberate act of violence against innocent children and other people worshiping. The coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church.
Every one of us needs to be wrapping our arms around these families, and the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
We saw that the other day. The exasperation in that mayor, and I don't know him from Adam. Just it's the first time I ever even saw anything from this guy. And I shouldn't. He's mayor of Minneapolis, right? I don't live there. So, but you could tell at the end there, that last little bit, that the thoughts and prayers, which is this typical politician go-to, he was not having it that day. That was Wednesday afternoon. So this was all very raw and unfolding. And obviously, and Mike and I did a live stream that night because in the interim between it happening that morning and then the afternoon or evening when we started to do that live stream, it came out that the person was trans and that they were atheists. And then more and more that it seemed like they hated the world. You name a group and they didn't like them. But we wanted to talk about it because atheism was a factor. And since then, we have seen on right-wing everything else that atheism and trans people are out of control. And every bad thing can be attributed to that. So, Mike, I'll let you follow up on any further developments on that in terms of the identity politics that have come into play. So give me your 2 cents on that.
So when I first started looking into what the statistics were of trans shooters, the best information I could find was 2 in like the last 50 years. Well, yeah. Now, since people have been doing over these last few days, since our last live, it appears as though there have been, I believe it's between 8 and 10. Now, it's interesting to note that a quick glance will tell you that the reason that the numbers are so disparate over 50 years is because it wasn't considered a motivating force, those other individuals being trans. You know what was the motivating force? The abuse that they suffered from the hands of the religious right. Poor trans people living their lives were constantly bullied. It was bullying. Yeah. And what we aren't seeing is the evidence of that being exposed and ran through the news cycle right now with this current shooter. This is another young person during that period of time where the brain is developing. Sometimes, sadly, people will go through, and my stepson experienced this. He went through a period of psychosis. It's just what happens. We all have heard about how when people will go off to college and a couple of years later, they just go bananas. That happens sometimes. That's reality.
Yeah.
It has that has nothing to do with being trans or being atheist. I am frustrated because the news cycle has, as I'm sure none of us are shocked at, but it's picked up on the trans factor and the atheist factor. And I think we can all agree, I think the four of us here at least, and probably some of our viewers can agree, that when people say that it's an atheist saying something or an atheist doing something, a lot of times they don't really realize, or even the individual that's being pointed out doesn't necessarily know what atheism is. Atheism is not anger at religion. It is not a lashing out at religion. Atheism is simply the absence of belief. Now, some people will pick up a label and they'll take it on and they'll run with it and they'll act inappropriately.
Right.
That's just the world that we live in. So it would be really nice if the news cycles out there and the powers that be get their stuff straight, because it's only serving to put a bigger wedge between all the different groups of humanity. All the human beings that are walking around on the face of this earth are a wonderful example of the universe literally experiencing itself. You know, that is so magical and majestic that it's almost unbelievable that we are actually star stuff that gets to experience itself and each other. You know, we don't need any more wedges driven between any other parts, between different parts of society. It's not necessary, but that's what's in the news cycle, and that's what we're getting.
Yeah. You guys have any thoughts on that, Larry, Cynthia, in terms of that whole identity and the whole issue?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Larry.
It makes better news story when you get something unique like that to have a headline about. I'm sure there were callous news people around that said, "Oh, thank God it's not another Christian shooting up a synagogue," because that gets boring because it happens over and over again. Oh, we got a new thing to talk about.
Yeah. A minority group that's very vulnerable, and they can all point to that person.
54% of the shooters, or I should say, of the leading causes of death for children and teenagers, so ages 1 to 19, the leading cause of death is a white male with a gun. A white male with a gun. And when we look at what the predominant proportion of white males are in this country, it's over 66%, and they are Christian. So we can surmise that that's the most dangerous thing for kids right now. It's not like it's not drag queens during their story hour.
Right.
You know, like someone said earlier, it's none of those other things. So let's focus, and it's that the exasperation in my voice is I'm echoing the exasperation in the voice of that mayor. While he was, think about this, while he was standing there, the blood was still fresh on the floor of the church.
Yeah.
Right.
Less than 100 yards away from him, and people are worried about what the shooter's background was.
Yeah.
Come on, let's look at the reality. Let's look at the math and the numbers. I keep going back to the reality. And another person, Jen Psaki, Biden's Jen Psaki, she's now, I think Larry, you mentioned it might have been CNN or MSNBC.
MSNBC,
yeah. And she was press secretary for the Biden during the Biden administration.
Right.
She broke down crying when she was explaining this and saying, or reporting on the story and saying that it's not a time for thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers have never worked. They just, we need something real to happen. And I saw something else really interesting. Can you imagine if it was 17 people who were shot? Let's say, because 14 of them were children, the other ones were adults. So let's imagine that 14 children were shot, and all of those children belonged to Republican senators.
Yeah. We have,
How quickly would things change?
Yeah.
I'm going to push back and say they wouldn't change.
I agree. I agree with Larry.
Do you really think it wouldn't?
I do not think. I think there would be some cursory efforts put forth. I don't think it would seriously change.
I don't even think that there would be cursory efforts to be put forth, to be honest with you.
I'm thinking of the Brady bill when Reagan was shot. They did
okay. So do you think that they're just going to fall back on the God works in mysterious ways? Or are they going to fall back on the Second Amendment? Because they cling to both of those
don't do anything
like it's their favorite toy.
Guns don't do anything unless they're told what to do. That's the argument they're going to use.
Yeah.
A good guy with a gun is what we need, which was disproven in Uvalde.
Right.
There were good guys with guns down the hallway.
Yeah.
A dozen of them. And they did not go in.
They didn't go in, and those kids got killed.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if we even look at, like, you know, the majority of mass shootings that happen in schools to kids are in red states. And they always fall back on the axiom of, you know, it's not guns that kill people, it's people who kill people. And, you know, and then you would have, especially like red Congress people that would say, like, MTG, they're trying to take your guns. And I'm like, well, you know what? I would hope somebody come and take those people's guns, because those are the people who happen to go into these particular into these particular communities and commit mass murder. I mean, think about, even if we just go back a few years to Buffalo, New York. That person drove over 250 miles just to go shoot up a grocery store of people shopping for their food that they were going to cook that night and the next day, right?
Yeah.
He purchased his AR-15 legally. And the majority of the people who actually commit these atrocities purchase their guns legally. And it's like, why can't we, or why can't you, who we have elected to represent us in Congress, actually work together to put common sense things in place in order for those things not to happen again? We can even look across the pond to Australia. Australia had one mass shooting. They banned you know, AR-15s and other, you know, rapid firing weapons, and they also like regulated guns, so that they never had that issue again. We look at some of the Scandinavian countries who, by the by, have gun clubs where even kids go and learn how to shoot AR-15s. But in some of
those countries, it's a mandate that every male above a certain age get training and own a weapon. They have to own the weapon.
But they don't have it at home. Because they're going to,
I believe Switzerland is one of the countries where they're actually required to keep the weapon at the home.
Yeah, but they don't.
They don't have our problem.
But they keep the weapon at home, but they can only use it at their gun club. Because, like, I've seen, like, you know, documentaries that actually talk about that. So, like, and some kids as young as 10 and 12 are learning how to use the weapon, but they only are using it in a controlled environment. They're not in the streets, they're not at schools, they're not at the grocery stores, right? And every person who purchases a gun is registered with their local police department, and even their murder rate is low, because if they know that if they happen to use their gun to actually, like, you know, kill a person, it can be traced back to the owner, you know. Yeah, go ahead.
Another thing that's important to remember is that it's the gun lobby that started really jumping on this phrase. the gun was illegally obtained. Well, here's something really effing interesting. Every single gun in the United States did not, or I should say, every single gun in the United States at one point was legally obtained. There is not a gun manufacturer that just opens up their back door and says, all right, give me $50 and you can have this
Right.
fucking pistol.
Exactly. Not
It doesn't
one.
happen. They are legally obtained. So then I guess the next response would be, well, then it's the bad guys get a hold of the guns. Well, then, hey, guess what? We have a problem with bad guys, don't we? We have a big problem with bad guys. And if we take a look at it from an even deeper level, we have a problem, a really big problem with bad guys with serious mental health issues. So what happened to mental health here in the United States? Well, that got dismantled. Mental health was just absolutely dismantled back in the 80s by Reagan.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
It doesn't matter who the president was. The fact is that mental health programs here and the opportunities and the safety nets were just dismantled. And now those seeds were planted then, and we're feeling it now. And thoughts and prayers do not work.
I mean, even like working in that
Period.
industry as a social worker and just trying to do my damnedest just to get people into some type of behavioral health, situation in order for them to get assistance. It's, in some cases it can be very difficult, especially if the person does not have insurance. So, and now that we've seen and like I was able to help a lot of people get adjacent to some type of mental health assistance if they have Medicaid. But now we even have the issue, don't do that. We even have the issue that they have cut Medicaid by $880 billion. And Medicare has been cut. And then there's going to be some issues with Social Security being cut. So like even like programs that we have set up to be like social safety nets so that people can get care are no longer existing, or they're existing and operating at a very lower rate, that they're not able to be as assistive as possible to people who may be more prone to do such behaviors. And if you don't necessarily have the wherewithal to have the programs in place so that people can get help, plus the industry that can regulate the guns that happen to end up in people's hands that have such behavioral health issues, we're just sitting on a powder keg that's going to repeat itself over and over again.
Right. And it's continually being fed by the religious right, because it is the lawmakers, the religious right lawmakers, the evangelicals right now who are in power, who are the ones who are defunding by billions of dollars Medicaid, one of the locations where we have safety nets to be able to help people out. When we start to defund that stuff, don't start crying then that we have this problem. Don't start sending the National Guard into different cities saying, oh, it's a bloodbath there. When you're literally deconstructing, you're taking apart all of the things that could potentially help the people who live in those places. I was part of a group of people who were working on a grant for it was a comprehensive healthcare plan for the city of Milwaukee. And it was really interesting. At its very beginning, everyone is in support of it. Republicans and Democrats. You get about 50% of the way through, and the Republicans began to realize that what it really involves is getting into the high crime areas and asking these people, what do you need? How can we help you? And we in Milwaukee were formulating our comprehensive healthcare plan for the city of Milwaukee based upon what they did in East St. Louis. Terrible, terrible place in East St. Louis.
Yeah.
And what happened was this. They were able to introduce and implement everything, and crime in that area in such a short period of time plummeted so fast that people were actually asking if the reporting was accurate. That's how quickly the crime went down, and the standard of living and everything, mental health was skyrocketing, and they dismantled the program. Guess who dismantled it? Evangelical religious right. The moment that they realized what we were doing here in Milwaukee, they automatically started throwing up roadblocks to us. So so I don't want to hear complaints, and I don't want to see any pearl clutching by any of the people on that side when they are systematically in front of our eyes dismantling everything else and then saying, but our solution is to put soldiers in the street. It's to increase the police presence. Cynthia, you work in that area where you have solutions for people, but it's incredibly, your hands are tied. It's incredibly hard to get them in there. My cousin worked for social services, and he was let go because he was too successful. Tony Gonzalez is his name. In Appleton, Wisconsin, he successfully got so many people out of the social services program, they didn't need the assistance anymore, that they had to actually downsize the office there. And they said, that's not good for our budget. And they fired him.
Listen, let me tell you something. I know that a few of my colleagues have said this as well, that the goal that we strive for is to work ourselves out of a job.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. That's what we really want to do, because if we can work ourselves out of a job, that means that all the safety nets that need to be in place for people to survive and thrive are present, right? And if they're not, then that's the problem. Like, I know that, like, social work is super important, and also being able to get people to get to the resources necessary in order for them to get to where they need to go are also important. So what ends up happening is that, social workers help guide those people to get from point A to point B. But if you take away the resources to guide them there, then we'll constantly be in the same cycle over and over again, where we are constantly reacting to the same thing, and we are not getting any better for it, to the point where we are traumatizing our societal community members, because all we are doing is the same shuffle and dance to say that, hey, okay, we're praying for the people who have lost loved ones. We're so sorry that this has happened, and we only pray to Jesus. Wesley Curry II, who was saying that he's praying to Jesus that God would show us a vision. Hey, Wesley, I got a prayer for you to ask your God. Can you pray to your God for him to actually touch the minds of some of these people who happen to be in office, to come up with comprehensive policies that will actually protect us instead of killing us and killing our children, and also making sure that they're being able to be eaten, and also not be able to eat when they go to school, and they're actually educated, and they're actually being able to live trauma free, and not necessarily being scared and actually have to go through school drills in order for them not to be shot when they actually go to school. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? I didn't grow up having to go through mass shooting drills. I never experienced that. But I have a 4-year-old who will. I have a 4-year-old who will. So can we pray to God to intervene for that not to be a thing? That would be so great of God to do, Wesley Curry II.
I feel like Wesley
Curry grew up having tornado drills and fire drills. That's it.
Right. That's it. That's it.
Wesley is a longtime viewer. Wesley, I entertain Wesley because it's entertaining. But at the same time, I speaking of people that may need help, I don't know, Wesley, you sometimes say some things like, I don't even know where you're coming from, bro.
I'd like to apologize. Mike was making very cogent points and passionately said, unfortunately, myself and I know Cynthia were trying to suppress smiles because Wesley was chiming in the chat.
Wesley is,
and we're trying.
That part.
Wesley.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's just such a tough issue, and unfortunately, not that we're supposed to solve the problem, but we're going to have this conversation if we're still doing these 10 years from now. This same conversation is going to be had. It is.
The depressing reality, and I think we all like dealing with reality, but unfortunately, some of it is not good. The depressing reality to me is that nothing happened after Sandy Hook. And if nothing happened after that, I don't hold any hope that anything's going to happen anywhere.
No.
Even if you go back to 1999, when we look at what happened to Columbine,
yeah.
And we looked at like some type of cursory effort to be more integral when it came to mass shootings. By the time that, we got the GOP back in office, all those things were rolled back. And then what ended up happening? We ended up getting more and more and more mass shootings. I mean, like, I was watching Jon Stewart the other night when he was talking about what happened in Minnesota. And he started to name like all the most recent mass shootings that have happened, and where kids were mostly involved, and like, and other, people who were just innocent, just going about their day. And he's like, and Uvalde, and the Tree of Life, and Virginia Tech, and Sandy Hook, and Columbine, and Waco, and and
there's a very long partial list.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, and then like, people were clapping and he was still going. You know? And I'm just like, how in the world can we tout ourselves to be the greatest country in the entire world on this great earth, right? And we can't even do the smallest thing to protect our kids and constituents against mass violence from normally one gun owner.
There was a discussion about, well, we should have better doors on churches and schools. Can you believe that actually came out of a legislator's mouth?
Yeah. I hate when they say that sort of thing. Like are you missing the point any more? Could you miss it any more? I mean,
could you be any more publicly stupid?
Yeah.
The guy in Minneapolis shot through the window.
This makes me want to go back to the days where they would do duels on the floor of Congress. When Congress people would say, hey, won't we just have better doors on churches? And then like this other fellow congressman that says, that was the stupidest thing that I ever heard in my life. I challenge you to a duel. And then we're just getting Aaron Burr on their ass. Seriously. I mean, that's I feel like that sometimes because like I'm a masochist when it comes to politics, and actually will watch, C-SPAN when they're in session. And I listen to some of their debates when they're talking about like, markups on bills. And I will listen to like some of these Congress people actually propose the most dumbest things in the world in order for them to quell a very serious problem. And I'm just like, how in the world? If anybody actually watched Lean on Me, like one of the things that he ended up doing was putting chains and locks on the door.
The doors.
In order to keep the drug dealers out, right? And then the first thing that happened is that they had the fire marshal come in and arrest the principal for doing that in the first place.
Right. I remember him running through with the microphone. Get the chains off the door. Get the chains off the door.
Right. The enemy is here. The enemy is here. Right.
Stretch our minds way back. That was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Right. Do you do drugs, don't you, Sims? Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that thing was actually explored. Get better, security on the doors. We try to do that into trouble. So
a response to the strong doors here. Hold on just one second.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
That's what we did.
Beautiful.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Cynthia was saying, Cynthia said something that was really important about how when, and I have to admit, I do the same thing too, like watch C-SPAN or whatever. But it was, you watch these people and you're in shock and awe at what they're saying. And Mike has something that he was talking about a while back. And Mike, I wish you could, or if you could do us a solid and explain how you were talking about how these senators, these Congress people, they wouldn't want
Trump
anything. You know what I'm talking about? Go ahead and explain it, because you did a much better job of it than me.
I made the point, and I forget where it came up, but it came up that evangelicals have been on the Trump train from day one.
Yeah.
And all of us at our age have grown up with evangelicals telling us that they are the moral high ground, that they are better than all of us. They have these moral beliefs that certainly us as atheists, and if we just follow their path, and then they go ahead and jump on the one guy in the whole country that is the opposite of everything they stand for, right? But they can't help themselves, because I've always said that evangelicals are more of a political party than they are a religious movement. They're a political party with some religion versus religion with political, right? And my point, and that Mike's bringing up, is they will all lay hands on Trump. We've seen those pictures and all crowded around him with their hands on. They're all praying, and that lady that's his whatever religious leader or whatever. And then they all go home and they tell their children not to do anything he does, not to go lie, not to cheat on your wives, not to defraud people, not to screw a porn star, not to brag, not to make things up. They would tell every one of their children, because these are probably decent people at heart. They know that that is wrong. And then they walk out their front door and to CNN and any news camera wouldn't let them put a news camera in their face, and they say Trump is here sent by God. They don't believe that. They don't believe that for a second, but they have to say it because it's a political party. It drives me crazy.
Mike, I must do a little pushback, because half of the room are doing the same damn thing that Trump is doing. Just saying.
That's true. That is true. That is true. All right, I'm going to jump on one more question because we ran a little bit long tonight, but I do want to get this question out because it's going to apply to Cynthia and I specifically. Where's it at? And this came up, and I thought, Cynthia, you and I are specifically, and Larry too. Mike, I don't know so much about, but you'll see here in a second. Shouldn't stop talking about it. So the question was, why don't humanist secular meetups seem to last? And I'm going to give some qualify why I say Cynthia and I specifically, and Larry too, because Larry, you were at the first meeting. So I'm an admin for a atheist group here in Chicago. Cynthia is an admin and the leader of the Black Non-Believers here in Chicago. Larry and I went to the very first meetup of our group 10 years ago. It's a little bit over 10 years ago now. So they can last, but, and here's where my point of this is, one of the things I realized early on that I didn't realize was important, when people come to our groups, we have new people come to our meetings, and we have very social meetings. We didn't meet at bars. We just did one at the beach the other day, last couple weeks ago, 2 weekends ago. Mm-hmm. They often come because they miss the social aspect of church. And Mike, you kind of alluded to this earlier. You know, when you're at church and you're going through all that, everyone you know is at church. Your friends are there. Your family's there. You wrap up in it, and all of a sudden you decide to leave. You don't have anybody, and you walk away sometimes. And Cynthia, you and I have talked about this. It's even bigger perhaps in the Black community, because you're walking away from the community, not just the church as an institution. You're walking away from the community. So these groups, there's not that many of us, but any thoughts, Cynthia, on why they don't last? And I don't know how long you've been running your group, and maybe fill us in. And again, we'll plug that. It's the blacknonbelievers.org, I believe, but we can correct that if we're wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me about your group, Cynthia.
Yeah, www.blacknonbelievers.org. And then you can actually see like where we do have like, affiliate leaders set up locally in order for, people to join our meetups. And we're all on meetup.com, where you can just put in Black Non-Believers, and you'll see like Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, Charlotte, those are where we are currently listed. But I think that I know this. If I were to speak from the perspective of the Black community, I've said this before, it's not that the church does community better. They've just been doing it longer. So that's what people are used to. They're used to the community of aspect of, I'm going to go to St. Church on the High Rock Mountain Baptist below the Church of God in Christ, tree of everlasting hope and affection.
It's probably a real church.
This is a real church, people. No, I'm just kidding. But they're that's what they're used to, and it's like said, like, you know, what you do like on Sundays is that you go into church, you then attend your coffee hour or your or if they're doing like a fish fry to raise money, you do that, and then you know you talk to sister such and such and brother such and such, you catch up on the week, and then you go home, right?
Mhm.
And like, you know, they may have like their other community events that they have throughout the year that you attend, and that is your social calendar. But I think that what ends up happening is when you decide to come out of like a church setting and you're saying that I just can't rectify being in these settings knowing that I don't have a belief any longer. That is a very lonely place to be in. I even remember when I first, like, you know, came to the realization that I was an atheist. I didn't like, you know, jump up and do cartwheels. I promise you I didn't. I cried for at least a good hour. Yeah, I did. Because now that I have a non-belief, what do I do with that? Because for so long, for the majority of my life, I thought that, you know, if anything went wrong, I had God to catch me. Now that's not the case. What do I do with that? And that was scary, you know? And then, I mean, I was lucky enough that I was able to be introduced to others like that was in the community, especially Black non-believers and Mandisa Thomas, that, you know, helped, you know, maneuver myself into other areas where I can actually find community. And then, you know, I was asking her, did we have something here in Chicago? And then when I was with, you know, Black non-believers for a while, we were able to go ahead and come back. Titus. you know,
good.
Yeah, snacks are good. Like, no, I believe in
breakfast.
snacks. Yeah, I believe brunch and snacks is important. I get it. You know what I'm saying? So like every time that we do meetups, I always make sure I have snacks. But
You do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, because that's important. Snacks are important.
It is.
But but like I think that one of the issues that we do have, especially as far as like longevity is concerned, is that the concept for atheists communing is not a very old concept, even though that there have been organizations that still exist to this day that have done community, but it was less of the way that, you know, the church per se does it. And now we and now that we are in this space, we find you know, more and more people are starting to leave the church. We do have at least about a good 29 to 30% of people that's in the United States that consider themselves as non-religious, right? But even in that particular aspect, they still believe in something. I had a conversation with, you know, somebody today who said, well, I believe in the creator. And I was like, okay, that's great. But, you know, but, you know, even though they may not necessarily, you know, attach themselves to a said religion, but you know, there's still that. So I think that what has to happen in order for our communities to last is to do our best to really make them safe spaces for people who happen to be coming out of religion, because the more knowledge, and this is one of the reasons why we have such a big attack from the evangelicals when it comes to education, that we actually are getting and I mean, like, even just like looking at some of the things that's coming out of the James Webb telescope, oh my goodness, my mind is blown a lot of times when they come up with discoveries, right? That there's going to be more people that's going to be like, you know what, this whole God thing, not too sure about, but they don't necessarily want to lose community. And I think it's like super important for, you know, those who happen to, you know, be of the same mind, is to, you know, have those spaces open in order for them to be able to have a safe place for them to go. And I think that like the more that we actually present ourselves to be, you know, humanist, to be, you know, about doing no harm, then I believe that, you know, more and more people will come and we can build up a community that's outside of, you know, gathering because Jesus said so.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Larry.
I think there are probably two things that come to mind with this. First of all, you need someone who's willing to organize, for lack of a better word, other people, but not strictly in a structural way. You can do that, but for instance, deciding where there's going to be a meetup and the frequency of them, and you probably fit that role quite a bit, Michael. I know that when you moved away from Chicago, the meetups tapered off quite a bit. They were still occurring, but as soon as you came back, everybody was happy they were back, and everybody kind of, Michael's back. So it kind of takes kind of a lightning rod personality to kind of be the center of it. That's not to say you're the king of atheists or a leader or anything like that, which, you know, other people may
because those business cards I just ordered.
But I think there needs to be someone who is willing to consistently press for get-togethers. The other thing that I think I know you've mentioned, and I don't know that much about Black non-believers, but I'm kind of eager to start seeing if I can come to a meeting because I heard there's snacks. But I think perhaps, now I haven't been to get-togethers that have failed, but I would theorize that perhaps it's because those get-togethers are solely about atheism. And once you get past here's my story, and you know, and I grew up this way, and now I'm an atheist. And once you get past that, if there's nothing else there, there's nothing else there.
Yes,
I think probably with you two, especially, you've created or joined and furthered groups that are more substantial in that we don't just talk about atheism. My wife for years says, well, you're going with your atheist friends. I don't want to go there and just talk about atheism.
Right.
That's not what it is.
No, we don't do that. Yeah.
And that's why I keep going. If I wanted to just talk to someone about atheism, I would have gone a couple times, then I'd be done talking about it. And
you get off your chest, and what else?
You'd be done hearing about it from me.
Right.
Who wants to go to that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, like just last week we did movies in the park.
Did the movie,
yeah, you know,
because you guys went there that day, and then we were at the beach the same day, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was very upset about that, but I let it go.
You should do the Left Behind movies next.
No.
You did do. What was the movie we watched?
I'd come for that.
Michael Jordan. What was it? The movie?
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan. We at the library I did a screening Sinners.
And
we talked about it.
Yeah, that was great. But I think, Larry, you're exactly right. And it's one of the things that we realized early on. And I'm a social person. I mean, you know, my wife and I, we're both very social kind of people. So, and we had just moved to Chicago when we started this 10 years ago. So for us, it was as much about, let's just find people that we know we're going to have some similarities and like-mindedness, because we just didn't know it. We moved here without knowing anybody from Florida.
Yeah, you were working from home too, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very, it's an isolating sort of thing if you don't have a reason to get out. So we thought, well, we'll find people that we have something in common with. And that first one was put together, and we thought, well, these are great. And then, COVID did kind of put some skids on it. And then we did move out of state, and then we've moved back. But you're right in the sense that providing people something where they can come and just sort of like relax. Like I think you guys have all said, like once you kind of came out, there's a little weight lifted, like, okay. And then you can run into other atheists like, oh, right, I don't have to pretend. I can just say that this sounded
I can be
nuts.
true to myself.
Right. Or my mom came to me and she said, this craziness, I mean, I'm so sick of it. At least I can tell somebody and vent this a little bit. But you're right. If that's all we did, okay, you get that off your chest and there's nothing left. But ours are very, very social. And we try to realize, okay, if it's your first time, if you want to talk about that and get that off your chest,
happy to do
knock yourself out. We're here for it. If you want to talk about you just saw a movie or your kid just joined the band, or we're there for that too. And I used to say this in the group a lot, just to not scare people off. The only thing we have in common is atheism. The only thing you should expect to have in common is atheism. By its nature, we're going to have an overlap, but we're not going to necessarily even have the same politics. A lot of times it is, but it shouldn't be necessarily. I'd like it to not be, because that means there's more atheism out there, But everything else, art, how we raise our children, where we're from, all that can be totally different. We just share this one sort of thing. And I would love more people to do that. But you're right. The groups are tough. They are tough.
You have to treat that one thing as the starting point.
As a starting point. It's just the germ.
Right.
You'll
find out what you have in common going forward. But the one, it's the seed.
That's why I came. And my brother said exactly what you, Larry. He's like, why would I want to join a bunch of atheists? Like, it's not that. I get why you're saying that, but that's not it. It's not like church where we're going to worship for 2 hours and then we might get together and have pancakes. And that's not it. It's let's have a bunch of pancakes. If you want to talk about atheism, we'll knock yourself out. We'll do it. But we, like, to our credit, and you didn't say how long you were doing this, Cynthia, but we've been doing it for 10 years. For a while, we were doing it every single month for 10 years, for 4 or 5 years, every single month. Which is, I mean, that's a lot, but I loved it. And I didn't do as many this year. I think I had 2 here at the house. We did the picnic last week. I feel like there was 1 or 2 other ones. Your wife finally came, Larry, after years of wondering, does he really have a wife? Because you're always like, yeah, she doesn't come. Like, all right, whatever. Your wife lives in Canada.
I can't wait to try to get her to go to Black Non-Believers.
There you go. Just
yeah, come for the snacks.
Yeah, come for the snacks. Stay for the fellowship. Yeah, I wish we did have more of them. We're going to try to have more of them this coming year because I think they're just a blast, and I really, really have enjoyed them. Casey, do you know who this person, Casey A. Randy?
Yeah.
She knew you before you were a star.
Yeah, Casey A. Randy has been around when I first started.
He's been on here before. I rember Randy from
earlier.
Okay.
He has supported my whole non-career in YouTube. I feel like I show up on other people's podcasts and talk about stuff. But yeah.
I remember Randy talking before.
Randy,
but yeah, Mike, do you have any groups up there that you participate in? I don't know if there's any.
No,
there.
not.
Okay.
I mean, there may be, but I saw your group come across Facebook years ago.
Yeah,
and I joined it, and I looked for a Milwaukee group, I believe, and if I recall correctly, there just wasn't as much conversation. There wasn't. It wasn't anything that drew me in. I know one thing that really did. I actually remember now that you're mentioning it and we're talking about it, there was a lot of negativity in the group. There was a lot of bashing going on.
Just Milwaukee
and I understand frustration and I totally get that. But hey, let's ease up, let's enjoy being around each other.
That's a good
at each other's beautiful faces.
I think you probably got to the people who came out of atheism and they're still in their angry atheist phase.
Yeah. And I have patience for that now. I really do, because I completely understand it. My angry phase was a very quiet phase. I'm sorry, my first phases were very quiet. My angry phase is actually right now, and I didn't know it. And I want to thank you folks for being here for me, because I'm actually going through a lot of anger in between these lives. I really am.
I know.
And this is helping me out a lot.
Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Mike for bringing the therapy session together. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Mr. Smithgall. This is outstanding.
You're absolutely welcome.
Thank you so much.
Outstanding. I haven't felt this angry in so long, and at the end of feeling angry, I haven't felt so good, because it's good for me to just sit in that moment, sit in that anger and say, yeah, this is, now I'm making sense of it. It's not something that I'm pushing away anymore. I have an opportunity to be just an example of what the way you can begin to think once you go through deconstruction. So yeah, this is my angry period. This is what it can look like, I guess.
I'm glad we're here to help it diffuse it a bit.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm here to assist in any way possible.
Yeah. In fact, we'll use that to wrap up, because it's a good point actually to end on, because the reason we did the group 10 years ago, and the reason I'm doing this now, as I mentioned earlier, is there's that one guy out there, one lady out there who's thinking these thoughts, and they don't have anyone to talk to about it. And they're going through the frustration or the anger or the fear and all these various emotions because it's a big deal for a lot of people. And I thought if I could give them just one person, if one of the four of us they identify with, and they say, you know what, that Larry guy, I see myself in the way he is, or I see myself in Cynthia or whatever. And it gives them a little bit of an extra pump to go, okay, I can work through this, you know? If they don't reach out to us directly, at least they can watch some of these videos and say, okay, yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only person that thinks this. I see other people thought about it, and here they all look like well-adjusted adults. That's sort of the point. They can't all maybe come to our groups, our meetups, our physical meetups, but maybe they can just talk to us online. That's fine. We're all willing to do it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up because we went really long today, but it's such a great discussion. These are always my problem. I run long because who's going to stop this? It's such a good conversation.
Right.
Why would I put it to an end, right? I think all of you have expressed before, if anybody wanted to reach out to any one of us, just put a comment. This is going out live now. You can always comment. It's going to be up on YouTube, and then there'll be a podcast version, an audio version. I always rewind it because the way YouTube is, I will kind of save it and then repost it as its own. Either one of those, throw a message in there. If I see a message for Cynthia or for Larry, for Mike, I always let them know, hey, someone asked you guys a question specifically. Go in there and address it. I always address it. So, and again, I'll make another plea. Just do me two things. If you like this, make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. We love to have that. It helps the algorithm. And also, if you have a comment, I read every single comment, whether I agree with you or not, and I will respectfully respond to you. You saw how he dealt with Wesley, and he still got his voice out there. He got a chance to say whatever Wesley was trying to say. With that, though, Randy, thank you for joining. And Brian was on there earlier. If I didn't mention you guys earlier, I do appreciate everybody, Titus, everybody that did comment. And for that, thanks everybody for joining, and we will talk to you all later. Thanks. Take care.
Donate to Black Non-Believers.
Donate. Yes. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed that. If you have a question for me or any of our guests, make sure you drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Hey, and do me a favor, like and subscribe. That really helps us out, and it helps us bring you more conversations from beyond belief. And in the meantime, take care, and remember, reason and compassion go a very long way.